Hey guys, this is National Master Kevin Yang back at it with another video. So this will be this week's set of games for analysis, right? The simul that we played on Friday, 5 to 7. I will always be here. Just stop by, challenge Pooh 2012 on chess.com, and let's get started now. So this one is against our friend Annie G, right? Remember Annieg001 from last week? Well, she's back. Back at it very strong. So, c4, e5, knight c3, knight to f6. This is very standard for the what is called the English opening. So, white tries to control d5, but at the same time, black has this idea of d5, and maybe there's bishop b4, maybe there's bishop to c5. It really depends how you want to do it. Here I played the move e4, and all of a sudden, you sort of see this is a very big committal move. So what do I mean by committal move? Well, by playing e4, I have permanently said that this knight can come in to d4. Now, for some people, you might be like, ooh, that is a terrible thing. Yeah, it is partially not a great thing, but at the same time, you get even more control over d5. Sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes that's a bad thing, but regardless, it's just that sometimes white will play g3, bishop g2, and then set up this sort of English-looking setup. It's hard to explain it at the moment, but I'm going to show you as the game goes on. Bishop to c5, perfect move. Controlling d4, right, saying I'm going to take advantage of that square. g3 now. Just developing, and castle. That's my hope. d6, bishop to g2, and now knight to g4. And this is quite aggressive, but I like it. I like it because it forces me to play knight to h3. Now what I think I should have done here is I should have played the move h3 first, because that was obviously, I should have prevented knight g4. But I sort of thought in the game, if knight g4, I'm going to bring my knight out, not too shabby. And then one day I'm going to castle, put my king to h1 to walk out of this pin, and play f3. That was my thought. So after castles, I castled. And now knight to f6, saying I've got a line of sight on your knight now. But here I play king to h1. I'm saying, if any time I can swing my knight back, or I can just keep this here and play f4. So bishop to e6 happened. I played d3, protect the pawn, queen d7, knight to g5. Now this is a better use of the knight. Now it seems like the bishop technically only has one square to go to. After that one square, there may be like f3, g4, if white gets very, adventurous. But that doesn't happen just yet. So here, our friend Annieg001 makes the correct decision. Knight to c6. Just saying, you know what, I don't need to move this bishop anymore, because there is no point. I mean, after f3, the bishop goes back, and you have to spend a few moves relocating. There's even the move bishop to h3 for white, so it really goes to show that bishop to g4 may not be the best. So knight to c6, and here I played knight takes e6, hoping that our friend would take with the pawn, or take with the queen, doesn't matter. Yikes, I'm yawning again. That is human. See, chess players are also tired, so a good aspect for you viewers to know about how I'm feeling. Knight takes e6, queen takes e6. So, at this point in the game, I didn't only consider knight takes e6. I thought about knight to d5 right away. So I thought it was okay, but I kind of felt like after take, let's say take, a knight d4, let's say I try a3 to play b4, well, maybe a5. And then I wasn't sure about this position. I didn't know whether I was better, because at the same time there's a4 and maybe knight to b3, but at the same time I also have bishop to h3. So I didn't know. So that's why I didn't play knight to d5 at the time. I played knight takes e6, after queen takes e6, now I played knight to d5, saying that if you take, I will take back, and I will fork the two pieces. But if you don't take, I'm threatening a fork. So either way, it's getting spicy. Rook to c8 now. Now I feel like there's a better way of protecting this pawn. Because the rook going to c8, it looked like, there was not much of a future for that rook, right? And at the same time, the rook is probably not going to sit there forever to defend this pawn. So I would suggest maybe bishop to b6. I don't know about that one, but knight to e8 looks kind of interesting. I mean, maybe one day there's g6 and f5. Hard to say when, but always prepare for things. But yeah, at this position already, I kind of felt like f takes e6 had to be the right capture. And it's very hard to spot why, but after queen takes e6, knight to d5, that is when black sees why. Pawn taking on e6 is going to limit white from going to the d5 square. So remember, doubled pawns aren't necessarily bad, they do something sometimes. So after rook a8, I played the move rook to b1. I said I'm going to go for b4, and if you go for bishop d4, I'm going to push. So here queen to d7 happened, and I would say this was the game-losing move, but it's hard to see why, right? Knight takes f6, and all of a sudden, black's structure is busted. Now, remember how I said earlier, doubled pawns aren't always bad? Well, in this case, they're bad. In the previous case of knight takes e6, f takes e6, these are not bad pawns. This pawn controls this square, this pawn controls this square, and this square, and this square. They're not bad. However, when we get to g takes f6, this is bad if f5 never happens. And it's also bad because there's a line of sight now that white can use in order to get to the king. So my first move is queen to h5, saying, well, I want to try to get in here. I might want to play bishop to h6. I might want to play bishop to h3 and go for that skewer. So there are many things in the position here. King to h8, but now bishop to h3. And this is very, very devastating. Because here's the thing, queen e7, I'm not going to even take that rook. I'm going to play bishop to f5. Use it and checkmate. So what did we learn here, right? The opening was not so great for me. I had to play h3 first, so I'll remember that. Bishop to g2. So the rest was somewhat smooth. I don't know if knight to f6 had to be played, because at the same time, this knight, it needs to take two more moves for white to really kick it away. So I'm not sure if knight to f6 really had much of a purpose. I mean, I could see that, you wanted to double up on this knight on h3, but at the same time, if you look at what white's doing, king h1, f3, bring the knight back, then you could see that, that bishop g4, queen to d7, that double up on h3, maybe not so worth it, but hard to say. So knight to f6 happened, and the plan happened, knight to g5, and here, this is probably like the second most important game-deciding move that was in this game. There was a difference between queen takes e6, and there was a difference between f takes e6. So, knight takes e6, queen takes e6, knight to d5. Here's where I got the square, and here's where I was able to get the play, and that was the game. So in our next game against Annieg001, it was just a simple bishop c4, bishop c5 game. Knight c3, and now we transposed into what is called the four knights defense. d3, h6, just saying, don't play bishop g5. I just want to take that. Castles, now I play d6, and now I want to do the same thing. Our friend Annieg does the same thing. So this is balanced. a6, and now bishop to e3. I like this move. And at this point, I sort of thought, is it good for me to trade here? And the answer is yes and no. Yes, in being that there's doubled pawns, but these doubled pawns aren't necessarily bad. And number two, this gives white an F file to work with if I take the bishop here. So I played castles. Now, some other moves I could have played, well, bishop to a7 was definitely a move I could have played. Bishop to b6 was a move I considered, but I thought, if the bishop was here, capture, I would be okay. So I castled, take, queen to e2, and here I played knight to d4. I just asserted my knight on the dominant square and just went for it. Knight takes, pawn takes, knight to d5, and here I decided not to trade this. Here's why. I considered knight to d7, considered knight to e8, and I considered knight to h7. Now here's why I did not want to trade. The reason is because, well, I kind of felt like this knight could always get pushed away by c6. And if I traded, I would sort of lose that, that good looking attack. I kind of felt like if I could play c6 and b5 and attack both of these guys and keep going, I would have more initiative. I would be attacking white's pieces, and white's pieces, they aren't exactly placed in the best position. But you might say, well, this knight on d5 looks really good, so what's wrong with it? Well, in total honesty, the knight, if I move the knight back to e8, this knight only has one square, b4, right? So take a look at how easily I trapped this knight. f4, c6, knight b4, and now a5. F takes e5, and I don't even have to rush to get the knight. I play queen d7. Now, I could have also played knight to c7, right? But here's the thing, I was a bit concerned. So at this moment, I sort of thought, okay, what happens if I take on b4? So I want you to figure out why I did not take on b4. And that is where I'll leave you for this video. So have fun, discover your curiosity, take a moment to think about it, and I'll see you next time.